2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. It is 4th of July. I got my State Fair gear rocking here. The Crab Cake Tour is coming up to Harford County this week with Harford County Executive Barry Glassman. Next week, Stuart Pittman down in Anne Arundel County, and we are coming to a crab cakeria near you beginning on the Eastern Shore August 1st. I'm doing 30 crab cakes in 30 days. At one point, I did 30 ballparks in 30 days. I haven't been to a baseball game this year, and it's really strange. Bryan Hoch is my guest here. He's written a book called The Bronx Zoom, and as it has it, I booked him onto the program. We misconnected. We reconnected. He covers baseball, so his life is maniacal, like I always wanted mine to be back when I was 21. And I'm actually going to be in New York when Shohei Ohtani's pitching. And Brian, I haven't been to a ball game here and I haven't thought much about the Yankees or Yankee Stadium until I scored Springsteen tickets. New York's open. I haven't been anywhere. And now all of a sudden I'm thinking, Bronx Zoo. My wife said, "Do you want to go to the zoo and then we'll go to the ball game?" I'm like, "It's 98 degrees. I read the Bronx Zoo 40 years ago. Sparky Lyle, the whole deal." Your book is not the Bronx Zoo, more of the Zoom and I guess the Zoom era. And what a year and a half it's been. How you been, pal?
I've been great. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Nestor. And that is quite an intro right there.
Well, I mean, you run around with the greatest show not on turf, I guess, with the Yankees and beat writing here in the new era. I do remember the Bronx Zoo. My dad bought that book and I read it even with the curse words in it. I mean, we had ball 4 laying around my house too. It's how I wound up this demented. But writing books and the new era and the way things are done, I've always felt like the Yankees always had more money, and we're seeing the Dodgers and these other franchises separate themselves in the mess here. But I always felt like the Yankees would always just be a playoff team because they've been one for 20 years, that they wouldn't stumble, fall, rebuild, retool. I have the Red Sox beat writers on. They say there are mornings in Boston where they're the number 4 franchise in that market. But I haven't thought much about the Yankees. I really haven't, because the Orioles have been a come and go item here the last 2 years.
Yeah, for sure. And, the Yankees have certainly had some stumbles here in 2021. This team was picked by a lot of people to win the American League East, to go on and make some noise, get to the postseason. And right now that's looking very much in jeopardy. So it has not been the year the Yankees anticipated. The American League East is such a tough division because, look, I know I'm talking to you in Baltimore, but Boston is so good. Tampa Bay is so good. Toronto is up and coming. So the Yankees really have their work cut out for them, not just this year, but for years to come. I feel like this is the most competitive division in Major League Baseball.
I'll get to the Orioles. I mean, your book's about the Yankees, and that is your expertise. If I come up to New York, right, what am I going to find? I mean, I saw the games we play up there. It's earlier in the year. It's the Orioles. It is what it is. I did have a little baseball practice this week because I had Todd Radom on. He was out in Buffalo. He's a designer, and he went to the Buffalo Blue Jays games over the weekend. I didn't make it up there. And, I'm a baseball nerd, dude. I did ballparks, and my last name's Aparicio. I actually thought of going up and seeing what a ball game would look like in Buffalo. Then I found that they were charging like $50-$60 to get in, right? I did a little thing. I have a friend at Dodger Stadium going to Dodger literally tonight to see Dodgers Giants, and I helped her get some tickets. She's a special person. I did a cool thing for her. She's going to have a good night with her kids. But I thought, how much would it cost to go to a Dodgers Giants game now? I looked, it was like $50 to get in on the roof, StubHub. Then I checked Shohei Ohtani in New York. It was $11. And all of a sudden I said to my wife, I'm like, it's $11 to go see Shohei Ohtani pitch. I don't like Yankee Stadium. I do like the Bronx. We see some food, whatever. It's going to be hot. But what am I going to find? What does the Yankees brand feel like in that mall up there in the Bronx these days?
It's so funny that you say mall, because I was having this conversation yesterday about the energy in Yankee Stadium. And we just came from a 3-game series at Fenway Park where it was rocking up in Boston. Obviously it was Yankees, Red Sox, and they had a big celebration of Dustin Pedroia. So there was a lot going on, but that building was alive. And Yankee Stadium, thus far, I mean, I think their largest crowd has been 27,000, which for a building that holds 48 is really half full. So it almost feels like they're still opening up in a lot of ways. And even though they are full capacity now, the crowds have not fully come back. But Yeah, I was talking about that yesterday, and they were saying, how would you describe this Yankee Stadium that opened in 2009? I said, it's kind of like if Las Vegas decided they wanted to build a Yankee Stadium and put it on the Strip. If you go to New York in Las Vegas, that's not the real Statue of Liberty. That's not the real Eiffel Tower at Paris. That's kind of the feel you have up there. And so it's a great place to watch. The ballpark is big. It's clean to watch a game. But, I feel like some of the grit of the old stadium is still lacking.
Oh, by far. And the old stadium, the strangest thing is you mentioned Fenway. And
Mm-hmm.
you're right on top of it. If the game's good, I mean, you can spit on the third base coach, from anywhere. Literally, you feel like you're in it.
I
The
don't
old
recommend
Yankee,
that, by the way. With
no,
COVID now, I mean, please don't spit on.
the old Yankee Stadium was so far back everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You were so far off the field. Yet when Paul O'Neill hits a home run in a World Series game, I've never felt it felt like an earthquake. When I was in that building, and I was in that building many, many, many times. The old building for all those big games in the '90s and stuff, all the World Series games. And the new place, I've been there 20 times. I mean, I wish Ohtani were pitching at Citi Field because to me that's a better experience to get to go out, get off the train there, be in something that feels like it was built sort of kind of on a polo groundy kind of feeling more than like this Vegas. I don't like the new Yankee Stadium, and it's not that there's nothing about it I shouldn't like. It is better than the other place kind of for watching a game, being in on the action for sightlines and whatnot, but it's weird. It's always weird, and it's not desirable. It's like when I drive by the old Memorial Stadium site here, it makes the hair kind of like, man, what used to be was better. How did you go and screw this up?
You wait a second. Can we go back for a second here? You
Yeah, sure.
think Memorial Stadium was better than Camden Yards? Because I love Camden Yards. Like
Because you come in and you kick our ass, and there's 40,000 of you, and there's none of us left. It's gone. There's no Oriole magic when the Yankees. Dude, Camden Yards is the disaster. 30 years into it, there's Cal Ripken waving to everyone. And that was 27 years ago now, 26 years ago now, right? So, and then there was a Delman Young double that you probably don't even remember that everybody here oohs and ahs about in the division game. That's it. That's Camden Yards. Other than that, and Free Willy, and the night that John Kruk's bailing out on Randy Johnson. I mean, the Pope. Billy Joel played there last year. But other than that, that's about all we got. I mean, we're in a different place here. Baseball's in a different place in my market for sure. And I love when the Red Sox we love Camden Yards. And I'm like, I don't know when it's going to be relevant here again.
Well, I mean, we're having two different discussions there. The team on the field and the ballpark. It's not the ballpark's fault that the team on the field stinks.
But that's the vibe.
Yeah.
The vibe's different when you're 30 games under 500, man.
I get it totally. But I will tell you that when I come down and have to cover a game at Camden Yards and sit in that press box and look out at the warehouse in right field, I love that place. So it has nothing to do with how the Orioles play. I just like the building. Anyway.
Let's talk about your book. I want to talk about your book because
this has been architecture talk.
No, it's fine. I think there is some architecture to all this because, coming back to the ballpark after COVID, what you're going to find, what your ball club's going to look like, what their philosophy is. Here, we're trying to get the number one pick, and it's go to Bowie and see Rodriguez pitch and see Rutschman and all of that. But the issue for other franchises is completely different in the middle of a plague in a 60-game season, which you've chronicled. I called last year, and if you had been on my show in any of those 3 weeks when the Orioles were relevant in August last year, I called it Eddie Feigner. I said it was like beer league softball. It felt like a weekend beer league tournament. The whole thing felt that way to me last year. And baseball had the roughest way of all of them. Hockey and basketball bubble, they did their thing. Baseball didn't have anything near normal last year for anyone.
Well, I think the difference was that if you go back and remember when everything shut down in March, as you're saying there, hockey was already underway. They were just trying to finish their season. Basketball, the same situation. In baseball, they were just getting started. And, I was down in spring training with the Yankees in Tampa when everything stopped, and they were telling us, oh, it's going to be at least 2 weeks. We're going to delay for at least 2 weeks. And then obviously that became weeks and months. And by the time they got back on the field in July and we were playing in these empty ballparks, it was just the most bizarre situation I've ever because first of all, they did their spring training at Yankee Stadium in a completely empty ballpark, and then the season finally begins, and you walk in, and everything is just abandoned. There's no concession stands. There's no life in the building. You're walking, and things are collecting dust. And you make that turn, and you see the lights are on, and there are the Yankees on the field at 7:05, ready to play a game. And you're looking around, kind of like, who are they playing this game for? Is this game for me? They only allowed 35 media members in the park. I went to every single game at Yankee Stadium. I was there, and it was just not just for me, but for the players, for the executives, the coaches, everybody around the team. It was the most bizarre year you could ever imagine. I think they had to self-motivate a lot. They had to remember who they were playing for, because these are guys who have been playing in front of a crowd since Little League, right? Since their parents were there. All of a sudden, there is nobody there. There's this weird artificial soundtrack. You've got video game noise piped in. It sounds like an AM radio. It was just really, really strange. And you also felt the season was a house of cards that could crumble at any minute.
Well, certainly in St. Louis, in Florida,
Yeah.
I lived through Ravens season here. Bryan Hoch, rhymes with Coke. The book is The Bronx Zoom, inside the Yankees' most bizarre season last year. We're in the midst of bizarre. Bryan used to come on all the time, talk about Yankee Stadium and Orioles, man. I went to an incredible knockout game, Yankee-Oriole game up there. Feels a decade ago now almost, with Buck Showalter. And so, there have been big games, big crowds. You mentioned people not coming back at Yankee Stadium yet. For the sport itself and holding it together and having a tournament and having a world, like the weirdness of the World Series last year and pulling pitchers, and that's a whole strategic thing aside from architecture. But the fact that they survived it, and now on the other end of this, we have this incredible grudge match with players and owners. I mean, I go back, this is my 30th anniversary. I go back to Lords of the Realm, the first baseball strike. We were a baseball only town back in 94 here. There were no Ravens. I mean, in the middle of all of Ripken's streak, all of that. 30 years later, there's still acrimony. And the fact that they fought about money. It reminded me of Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell pulling up in limos 40 years ago, trying to get them on the field last year. The negotiation, that mating call of Players Association and them not liking each other sort of bubbled up in the middle of all of this that they almost didn't play.
Totally did. And I write about that in the book. And, there was a long period of time where I said, I'm not going to walk into Yankee Stadium this year. It's just not going to happen. And, and because – look, the virus was obviously should have been concern number one, but it felt like the players and the owners almost put that to the back burner. They said, forget about COVID. Let's talk about dollars. And they spent so much time going back and forth about how many games, how much pay. The players wanted to play more so they could get paid more. The owners did not want to play as many games because you're going to be having empty ballparks here. They're going to lose money on these games.
Well, you had owners that didn't want to play. I mean, John
Angelos,
there's no way he wanted to play. I mean, there was much more money to be lost than there was to be gained.
Everybody with the Yankees swears to me that they wanted to play those games. But, yeah, there were owners around the league that looked at the bottom line and said, hey, our team's not going to be competitive. Why are we going to have this season and take a bath financially? Let's just cancel the year. So, anyway, they did figure it out eventually. It took a lot of pushing and pulling. And remember, this all came back that Commissioner Rob Manfred had to enact the season. They were never able to come to an agreement to play, except that the commissioner said, all right, we're having a 60-game season. You will get paid for 60 games. Show up or don't get paid. And so that's how the season got going. But, yeah, there was not great communication between the Players Association and the league. And as you mentioned, with a CBA coming up after this year, I think it's going to be ugly. I think they will play next year, but I think it's going to be a bumpy road to get there.
Well, the whole thing's bumpy, dude. I just, being in the baseball business, my last name's Aparicio. I built everything around the baseball team 30 years ago, and it's been an effing disaster here. And what's going on here now and the ownership, we have a 2-year lease. The old man's eating pudding. No one knew who's running the team. Now they're at fire the manager when they're losing 13-0 and 9-0 every night. And they're playing, they don't have the quad A players. Like they have a journeyman second baseman platoon. I mean, they have nothing going on here. And the Nationals have won a World Series since the last time you and I have gotten together, literally, right? So it's different here, but for the whole sport, you said those two words, Rob Manfred. And I think to myself, what's this cat doing? I mean, they're out strip searching pitchers for rosin. They're the games are terrible. The game, I mean, forget how awful Masson is, how awful my baseball team is, how awful I mean, everything about the thing here is a turd, right? But the sport itself and where they are with having the Otanis and having the Trouts and having star players and having bat flips and Tatis and all of this, and how it gets marketed and how completely local to regional it's become in every market that it feels like it's passed them by. It feels like I've watched horse racing do this through my lifetime. It feels like baseball's on a really weird side of a back arc of a curve in places not called Yankee Stadium or maybe San Diego or LA where they're having a good time right now, but just everywhere through the country for all of it, for kids playing it. Kids play lacrosse here. That I'm really worried about baseball. I'm worried about my franchise. I'm worried about Nashville. I'm worried because my owner wears cowboy boots and lives in Nashville where they want, like all of that. So people think I'm out of my mind when I say, well, the Orioles could leave Baltimore. I'm like, well, if nobody's going to the game, if nobody cares, they'll leave at some point.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Hey, man, I'll tell you what. I watch it. I talk about it every day. I live downtown, and I see no one coming.
Well, I hear you. And I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said something about it being a regional sport. And I think that's what we need to remember about baseball is it's always been hyper regional. I think that Yankee fans, for example, they care about their team. I don't think they care much about what the Dodgers or the Padres are doing. They may kind of watch the highlights or whatever, but I feel like when you grow up, it's that connection to your grandparents, to your parents. Your parents were a Yankee fan or an Oriole fan. So that's why you became a Yankee fan or an Oriole fan. I feel like there is a intense connection. Jerry Seinfeld always used to say the line about rooting for laundry. I think that's a real thing because it's passed down through generations, and the sport as a whole maybe doesn't kind of resonate the way, I'm thinking now about the NBA playoffs, right? And even if your team got knocked out, I feel like you're watching the final rounds here. You're interested in it. I don't know if that's the case for baseball fans. When your team gets knocked out in the playoffs, are you continuing on to watch the World Series or do you tune out? And so
I
feel like
do you like baseball? Does it compel you, right? Like I've gone through this with hockey recently where like I think hockey's the best sport because it moves, it just moves. Baseball, it never moved. It was always for thinking and boxing, keeping score. And now it's all sitting there on apps and you don't have to so you don't engage with it the way you used to. Maybe you do in the press box. Maybe I'd love to keep score for a game again, like on paper with a pen. But I think there's part of the strikeouts, the home runs, nobody steals bases. All the strategy has changed. All the MITization of the analytics. And I know you deal with this every day. And I'm a flyover baseball fan at this point because I can't give 4 hours a night to this right now. I've just lived through a effing plague, dude. Like I have things I have to do with my life that have nothing to do with watching a baseball team that's trying to lose, literally lose. So and we're in the 4th year of this. And, out of 30 years, there's been 24 of them, out of 30 that have been this horrible. And I do worry about Kansas City, Pittsburgh rebound, places like that. This place is always, to a guy like you, it's the sleeping gem. All they have to do is win. And yet you need leadership for that. And to some degree, your book, the Yankees are well led, right? I mean, literally, they have a lot of money, but they usually decide to do good things, smart things with it.
Yeah, no, they've definitely invested a lot into their front office. It's more robust than probably any. You can put it on par as far as the brain power. You mentioned the MITization there, but I think that one thing you have to think about here is the on-field product. And you just mentioned something about home runs, strikeouts, and walks. That's not entertaining. That's not why we fell in love with this sport. And I think that actually now, look, I know it's ridiculous having the pitchers being strip searched and looking, there's got to be a better way to do that. But if this is actually going to bring back offense and we can see guys running around the bases and singles and doubles and more just action on the field, that's the sport that I grew up loving. I'm sure that you were the same way. I want to see a guy hit and run and a ball in a gap. I don't want to just see a home run derby every single night and guys trying to hit the ball over the wall and striking out doing it. So I feel like the game has gone too far in that direction, and it, just based anecdotally on what I've seen the last week or two, I feel like it's coming back. I feel like I have seen more action. That's just the feel that I've had watching these games. They still take a while. They're a time commitment, but I do feel like the on-field product has gotten a little more entertaining since the pitchers maybe got some of their secret weapon taken away here.
The Astros have been on my lips this week because they kicked our ass last week. They're in the process of kicking our ass again this week. I had John McClain on. John's an old friend of mine. I was an old Houston Oilers fan. He's covered the NFL for 40 years. He's an Astro fan, right? And we could talk logically about, anything Deshaun Watson or, J.J. Watt or covering football. But when it comes to the Astros, it's almost like talking to a Patriot fan. He's convinced that Altuve is, godly and worldly and didn't want to rip his jersey off because he didn't want his nipples out on TV. The cheating was bad, but not that bad. And, the pitching was this and the Dodgers were that. And it's unbelievable to me. Where do you sit on the Astros thing to me, having witnessed all I needed to on the internet of trash can banging, knowing I got thrown out 15 years ago by Angela. So I know things on the level in baseball and how much cheating and Albert Bell and cork bats and, guys climbing through roofs, and Brady Anderson never, ever had anything other than straight milkshakes in there. So, I mean, I've heard all the lies, all the unwritten rules, all of that stuff, through all of this. But, I guess bringing the whole thing full circle, where is it at this point on cheating when they're strip searching pitchers now that the paranoid are paranoid, and they probably should be paranoid? Because as a fan, I'm just assuming they're all cheating at this point.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, you can go back to, the days of Ruth and Gehrig, and players around the league were always trying to find an edge, and guys were scuffing balls and throwing spitballs. And so this is nothing new. Players have always been trying to get an edge. They're competing. They're competing. They want to win these games. And if you can do a little something, wink, wink, that will give you a better chance of winning a game or winning a World Series, then they're going to continue to do that. The thing about the Astros situation, and we get into this in the book, is that was really the story of the offseason of 2019 to 2020. And that was going into spring training. That was going to be the big talking point. And how are the Astros going to do this? And they're going to have to go on this shame tour around the majors where they're going to have packed houses. And, I imagine that when the Astros came to Yankee Stadium, they were going to have 50,000 people there booing them and just saying everything under the sun. And March 12th comes and poof, it all went away. And I almost feel like the Astros got a pass on 2020 because, look, and they're still hearing it now, but the hate and the vitriol, I think, has diminished because it's not so fresh anymore, because we found out more about it. But also, look, we all lived through a global pandemic where 600,000 people died and in the U.S., and it's kind of hard to get that upset about, hey, the Astros cheated a couple of years ago by banging trash cans. It's like, okay, yeah, I remember they did that, and people aren't going to forget. But I feel like people aren't as angry as they were in February and March of last year, when I remember, spring training games are a fun time. People go there to get sunscreen on and eat a hot dog. But the Astros, everywhere they went, they were getting booed by 7,000 retirees in Florida. And I said, this is going to be interesting. And we all got that taken away from us.
Nobody likes cheaters, dude. Nobody likes liars and cheaters. And I'm interested in knowing how bad they cheated, really. You know what I mean? To me, I think it's a code red. I mean, I think it's among the worst things I've heard, other than throwing games, and that's a whole other issue. Now that This baseball season, every ad I see is gamble on baseball, right? So there's a whole different initiative happening there, which should be concerning. I mean, it's just, of all the weird things baseball has had, policing itself has never been its strong suit.
How about that? Yeah, we were, like I mentioned, we were just up at Fenway Park, and I couldn't believe, over the Green Monster, there's a big billboard for DraftKings where you can bet on the game as it's happening. And then they're building a big MGM Grand Casino right outside Fenway Park that's going to be connected to the ballpark. So I was kind of like, wow, 10 years ago, none of this would have been thinkable. And baseball has really, when the managers fill out the lineup cards every day, you may know this, but they can't release it to the media and put it out on their Twitter feed until Vegas gets a look at the lineup card. That is true. All 30 teams have to do that. So yeah, it's crazy.
My
Baseball
jaw's
has,
open, dude. Like,
yeah.
say that again, like, so I can understand this.
No, and this is not, I'm not breaking news. It's out there. But yeah, when, say, your manager fills out the lineup card, the first person it goes to is the bookies in Las Vegas. They get the first look at that
I used
before.
to 30 years ago, like I had
Yeah.
a press pass for 21 years before Angelos took it in '06, right? That's how old I am. And I used to sit in Johnny Oates' office with Greg B. Genie, and he would fill out the line, like it would be on the door at 3:30 when a
Yeah.
pitcher came in, he wanted to know who was in the lineup, like literally when they reported to work. When does all this happen now?
This is within the last couple of years when baseball got that
Is
big
there a
agreement.
specific time that has to happen?
Oh, I mean, an hour when it must happen? Well, I know it has to be before publicly announced, like for sure. So if you ever see that there's a delay on, say, the @Orioles Twitter account with releasing the lineup card, that's probably why. They're working on some injury issue and they just want to make sure before they send it out there.
Where's the tail and who's wagging it? Bryan Hoch is here inside the New York Yankees' most bizarre season, the Bronx Zoom, and a pleasure to Zoom with you for the first time. I appreciate you pulling over on the Garden State or wherever you were at this point, dude.
Yeah, sorry, I thought we were doing audio only. That's my bad, but
Oh,
we're
now
making it
you
work
get to
here.
see that I didn't shave or anything, but I'm coming to New York. So I'm coming to New York, and I'm coming up to see Springsteen. I told you we might be in the same room together. If you got a Bronx pizza place, let me know on the way up. Tickets are just $11, so it's half the price to see Ohtani pitch at Yankee Stadium as it is to go to an Oriole game. And Buffalo was charging $60 to get into the games this weekend.
That's
so
wild.
There's still good value in the Bronx. What am I going to find in New York? I mean, I'm not. I don't watch Fox News, so I didn't think the city that Kurt Russell was showing up and you all were leaving, or that Billy Joel we were going to sink it out at the harbor like Miami 20. But I, 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 I've been traveling enough in D.C. and Philadelphia around here enough to know everything's not back to full speed. So
No.
I go as I go. But I'm more of a pizza window guy and more of a Asian noodle guy and walk around and see things. How is New York?
You will not go hungry. I promise you that. It was rough for a while. It was being in New York with those empty streets. I mean, so much of New York is the hustle and bustle, and there always being activity and something to do. And for a long period of time, that wasn't there. I mean, this was the epicenter of the virus, and you had refrigerated trucks in the streets. It was a really dark period for New York, and New York is back now. New York has opened up, and thank goodness for that, because they've definitely turned the corner. The vaccination rate is high in New York. So like you said, if you want pizza or noodles, or you want to go see a show or go see a ball game, come on up to New York. You can do it. I sound like I'm part of the tourism board here, but New York is open.
Start spreading the news.
New York is open. Come on up.
I'm leaving today. Give Pete my best. I don't sing as well as he does, but I sing okay. Tell all the fellas up there that I'm sorry the Orioles suck, and you get your 20 minutes back every third homestand when we get together. But congratulations on the book. Keep enjoying baseball. I might be up there. Ohtani pitching, right? Like I said to my wife, why am I so moved toward that? But I guess I am because I'm
It's
a baseball
cool.
fan, right?
We haven't seen this. We have not seen a player of that talent. I'm excited to see it, and I get paid to watch baseball, but I am very much looking forward to watching Ohtani pitch, because look, it's a novelty. It's something special that we just don't see.
Look, I'll come up, I'll knock on the press box door, sneak me out one of those ice creams they have up there, all right?
You got it.
They had the best ice cream at Yankee Stadium. Hey, I appreciate you, Bryan. Thanks for coming on. Congrats on the book, and I appreciate you pulling over, making a little time for us.
Thanks, Nestor. You got it. Anytime.
Bryan Hoch joining us here from New York. Bam, 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 no, 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 no. I'm leaving today. Springsteen. I should be singing Thunder Road or Born to Run, something like that, or New York City Serenade. Old school, Bruce. There you go. Wise Conversations, all brought to you by our friends at Wise Markets. They're sponsoring us. They're in your neighborhood. The 4th of July is this weekend. And, of course, Heritage Fair over in Dundalk, all sponsored by our friends at Wise Markets. And it's ice cream month in July. July is a great month, man. July's my anniversary, right? July's the All-Star game. My mom's birthday was in July. You can go to the beach, go to the pool in July. It's nice. Lightning bugs, July. But it's also Chicken Palooza, July, Chicken Palooza. So I have my Chicken Palooza cups here on the set. I got to fill it up. That's what I need to do. I'm going to have a little Chicken Palooza break here. July and August, enter to win chicken for a year. And it's tasty. It's good. Real fresh, real fast. Our friends at Royal Farms and Chicken Palooza will be telling you about that out on the road, as well as we do the crab cake tour from, I say, sea to Deep Creek Sea. From Ocean City out to Oakland and Deep Creek Lake. Get to do some fly fishing with Dan Rodricks. Trying to talk Dennis Colatzos into that, as well as Eric Sauer. There goes my hero. Big week here this week as we continue our crab cake tour. We're going to be up in Harford County at Barrett's Grill in Bel Air on Friday. And then next week, we're going to be with Stuart Pittman down in Anne Arundel County. We're looking forward to all of this. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net AM 1570 Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.